Greetings and salutations. You are listening to the Into the Moxfield podcast, where we cover the latest news and developments relating to the deck building site Moxfield. I'm one of your hosts, Lyndon, aka Noobzors, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Reed, aka Sick Robot.
Howdy, howdy.
And Morgan, aka Spleenface.
How's it going?
And in this episode, we're going to be covering the latest update on Moxfield. So that's their new stacks development. So it's a new visual interface, much like Architect and other deck building. We're not supposed to say their name. Rival deck building websites.
The big A.
Yeah. But yeah, that's we've got a lot to cover in this episode, so strap in for a doozy. No, but
it's like, how long do we have to keep this going?
We're gonna vamp for at least 10 more minutes now. But you're listening to the Inter North podcast. Why did we go through this whole shebang? We'll talk about that in a minute. But for real, in this episode, we're going to be covering cEDH pet peeves. And yeah, unfortunately, Matt couldn't be here for this episode, but you'll hear from him again.
This might be the best one for Matt not to be here, so he doesn't draw any heat for blatant allegations of things that annoy us. But
yeah, dude, Matt has a way of like being very precise with like he'd say a pet peeve and it'd be like, oh man, that cuts me deep, I know I do that, or something. Like he's very observant with that that kind of thing. But yeah, so cEDH pet peeves, the kind of tagline for this episode is a quote from Frank Costanza in the great Festivus episode of Seinfeld, where he says, "I've got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it." And that's going to sum up this episode in a nutshell pretty good. But yeah, so before we get into the main topic, what have you guys been up to since the last episode?
I've, for once in my life, have been playing Boros. Wow.
Crazy.
Incredible, right? I think Cole's pretty neat, honestly. Lyndon, I'm not sure if you've seen a lot of it at all, but deck's fun. It's like the first time I've been satisfied with like a red white white list, really. So yeah,
nice.
Good.
I made it like two
good.
wins from getting into Diamond in StarCraft, and then the season lock happened, and I was big sad.
Oh, so okay, actually I have something even more tragic than that, which is that I got into Masters again for TFT, and then I was going to decay out of Masters like a day before season end. So I went to play a game to stop decay from happening, and then I lost the game and got demoted, and then grinded some games to try to get back in, and then got demoted again to D2 because I was on tilt. So I ended the season D2. Feels bad, man.
I've been jamming a lot of Slay the Spire. Shout out to friend of the show Keegan for putting me onto this game, and I know Morgan, you have as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that game is hell fun. Been playing a lot of the Defect. Gonna grind my way to Ascension 20 and do Ascension 20 Heart Run.
Okay, basically, we like card games. Just I know, you may be surprised to learn this.
Who would have
about
thought,
us.
Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone, Magic, like, did any of you guys play the Pokemon TCG?
Like, barely.
See, I collected Pokemon cards, never played Pokemon.
I don't think I mean, obviously I'm gonna get kickback from this, from our equivalent in the Pokemon world, like our equivalent podcast in the Pokemon world, but like I don't think the Pokemon card game was ever designed to be like a good card game, right? Like, wasn't it just designed to sell cards?
Yeah, I think
Reed, we can't say that having played Yu-Gi-Oh, dude.
Yeah, there were definitely some like very unrewarding elements in that card game. Also, what was hilarious was you took your friend's deck of energy and you just flipped through it and just got it.
Wasn't Pokemon like the first real like cCG to have a prize card system though.
Yeah, the prize card system was cool. The energy system was
like,
miserable.
Yes, I think the prize card system is like
it's like mana in Magic.
It's like the big highlight.
It's like mana in Magic, except once you commit it to a thing and that thing gets killed, it's gone. Oh. Like, think about how bad it feels. Like when you were starting out Magic and you just had some like big dumb Timmy creature, and then you resolved it, and then it got Doombladed, and you were like, oh. Like, imagine
if it
that.
Doombladed all the land, you have to cast it.
But you also just got Getted. Like,
yikes. Yeah. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's jump into housekeeping. We have some new patrons. Morgan, do you want to read them out?
Big shout out to Keegan, friend of the podcast.
Yeah, he was on the Urza special episode.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
And Harry
very clearly the most important new patron.
Clearly,
yeah, Harry from Moxfield. So, for whatever reason, God, there's a bit of like, there's some like. God, just trying to explain the entire backstory here is a bit much, but like there's
so much
lore. A lot of time. So Reed, part of the cEDH deck list database, Shadow Cabal.
Are we really doing this?
Yeah, they're anti tapped out agenda. Made everyone switch from the tapped out lists on the database, and the people on the Frog server, and I mean other people as well, but I mainly spend my time on the Frog server, so this is what I'm aware of. But yeah, people on the Frog server were like being grumpy about it, and we were making lots of Moxfield jokes because on their announcement post on the deck list database, I think they were like, they switch to something other than tapped out, such as Moxfield.
Still our official policy. We do not care what you use. Literally anything but tapped out. That being said, now that Harry has shielded for the podcast, I definitely recommend Moxfield.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So we were joking that like well they're just they're clearly taking fat checks from big payments, Moxfield. Yeah. So. At what point I think I sent a message in the Frog server that's like, you know what? The only reason I'm staunchly against Moxfield is because I'm not getting a cut of the fat checks. So and I made a message that was like, I would shill Moxfield on my podcast for $1. And then just the other day, I think it started because of like something on Twitter maybe or whatever. But Harry Moxfield then. I say Harry Moxfield as if it's his last name. But his Discord name is Harry brackets Moxfield. So I'm just going to refer to him as as Harry Moxfield, as if it's his last name, because I think that's hilarious. But yeah, so he hops on the Frog server, and this is like a message I made from like, I don't know, it was like August or something, and he quote messages me on Discord saying like, you have to support it now, because he had just signed up as a new patron on Intelor. So I was like, he's like, are you a man of your word? I was like, you know what? I guess I am. You win. You win this round, Harry Moxfield. But I'll have my revenge one day. And that revenge is going to be collecting the patron / hashtag sponsorship money. So there you go.
I mean, and it wasn't. I mean, the shilling. It's not like it's not for a good reason, right? Like, isn't the visual deck builder one of your longtime asks from a deck building website?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I, hate Reed and everyone associated with the deck list database with the deepest, convictions of my soul because of their anti-tapped out stance, and they're trying to just steal all my tapped out likes. Which I primarily use Architect.
I think I have more likes than you on tapped out, but continue.
Yeah, and you're just so greedy. How much more? You're like the Jeff Bezos of tapped out likes, man.
I have more to lose than you from switching away from it.
Yeah, and you just can't let me have any. Okay, that's clearly, the fat cats are, just trying to.
At least you don't have 400 decks on tapped out.
Oh, yikes! Yeah, no, I primarily, I don't have 400 decks on tapped out because they're all on Architect, because I prefer using, I prefer the like visual interface. It's like the closest thing to having cards like physically in front of you, which is kind of how I like doing my brewing. So yeah, I've been using Architect, but then I'm not going to shit talk Architect, but
he just strips down and climbs into a bathtub full of cards and just emerges clutching 100, and that's his deck list.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, I found that there's many great things about Architect. Moxfield has been very receptive to feedback, and they're like constantly doing updates, and it's kind of like probably after this update, it's like I probably got to get my stuff over on Moxfield, because that's seems to be the most actively supported website. But yeah, there you go. Was that worth your patron subscription, Harry Moxfield? Did you get enough advertising
enough value
for
out of that? Yeah. God, the ROI on that must have been insane.
Dude, the ROI on the Moxfield meme value is insane. This meme has bared so many lols, so many LMAOs. Truly blessed. Okay, well, that's enough of that. I guess we're on to new developments.
I guess so, yeah. And we have just one, and that's the King of the Chrome Conquest Tournament, which is being held by the Conquest server on February 20th, if I remember my dates correctly. And it's definitely, if you've ever wanted to try out Conquest, highly recommend checking that out. We'll put some links in the description, and it's called King of the Chrome because there's a very fancy Chrome Mox as sort of the primary prize. So
aren't there multiple very fancy Chrome Moxes up for grabs?
Well, yes, but
but there's one particularly
one of them is the
Chrome
fanciest,
Mox.
right?
Yeah.
One of them has to be the fanciest. But yeah, the prizes are definitely pretty hot for a free tournament. So if you're into Conquest, definitely check that out.
Check it out.
Right
Dude,
on.
Conquest is so cool. I haven't been able to play recently, like been involved recently, but it's so cool.
Yeah, I haven't played, but I definitely see the appeal. Okay, so main topic of the show, cEDH pet peeves, hashtag sponsored by Moxfield. And we're going to start off with Morgan. We're going to go, Morgan's going to give a hot take. Reed, not hot take, I guess. They're kind of hot takes, if we're being honest.
I don't think these are hot takes. I really don't.
Okay. Well, and then Reed, and then myself, and we're kind of just going to go through the list.
And like, we're going to have some overlap because, a lot of people find similar stuff annoying. So we'll just sort of jump on if someone, says something that fits with.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
My first one is definitely instantitis, and I know I've been guilty of this. But just because a spell is an instant doesn't mean the best time to cast it is the end step before your turn. And also, I have poor spell timing in general. I think one of the big things I see is people trying to resolve, if you want to cast an ad nauseum, sometimes it's best, if you want to cast an instant speed ad nauseum, sometimes it's best to cast it, the turn before yours, if you think that person might have interaction or whatever. And I think people often just want to cast their spell as late as possible. And, because otherwise you're losing value on the fact that you can play it at any time, right? But when you let people untap and draw,
last possible.
Yeah, when you let people untap and draw cards, sometimes spells don't resolve, or the board state changes, and then your spell's not as good anymore. So, figure out when the best time to cast your spells is.
There's some interesting stuff here with vampiric tutors and I guess any of the mystic Mystical Tutor, Worldly Tutor, where sometimes it's correct to play it as a Imperial Seal. Now there's a bit of play with like, yeah, you let your opponents get a full round of the table so that you can bait out mental missteps or something. There's that. There's also, but then so that's the kind of main play around it, to not just launch it right away or to get more information, and change your plan. But
also to restrict information from the rest of the table, right? Like them not knowing that you actually have a tutor.
Yeah, but there is also the drawback of letting everyone, draw another card. So, they could be drawing the missteps, or they could be drawing, some counterspell, because if they have like, turn 1, land, go, which I mean, maybe that's less of a thing. That's less something to be concerned of. But like, there's miscast, dispels. Like there's lots of counterspells that people would gladly just eat a vampiric tutor. So yeah, definitely just at least don't automatically just wait till the end step before your turn. Put some amount of thought into it. That's I guess that's the take.
The take. It's the pet peeve. Come on.
Pet peeve hot takes.
We have to stay consistent with the branding here.
My pet peeve is people mislabeling things as hot takes.
Dude, my mega hot take is that all Into the North episodes are just hot takes. This is hot takes Into the North hot takes episode 41. So
I really don't think that's true.
Okay, read your text.
Anyway, yeah. I think like my first one here is just gonna be bad damage focus. So like just not
yeah, you always hit read. That's the
just people not having good reasons for hitting the people they're hitting, and or like just like constantly switching back and forth and not tacking like effective amounts of damage onto anybody, because they're just like, I'm gonna hit you with this dork, and now I'm gonna hit the next person with this dork, and now I'm gonna hit the next person with this dork. And instead of dealing one person like 15 damage, you dealt 3 people 5 damage, which is like nothing.
I think I almost lost it on someone once. They attacked me. Like, not only was I not playing ad nauseum, one of my opponents had a Sylvan Library, and one of my opponents had a Necropotence, and they attacked me, and it was just like, Did you look at the board? Like, what?
Yeah, and then like people like not cutting their losses, and like they like, well, I've already gone this far with attacking the wrong person. Might as well try to go the distance when they're attacking with like 1/1s.
Yeah.
Well, there seems to be a lot of like, obviously the kind of default assumption is attack the Nas player, right? But in some cases, like someone's got a Sylvan Library and like they parted out with like a Mana Crypt. It's like, man, damage is real, and I can close this game out with damage. Like that's sometimes a real thing that needs to be considered.
It's like it's not even like it. I don't like this. This pet peeve really for me is less about like threat assessment or assessing who to attack. Because like that's a misplay, but I understand that. Like if and somebody might have like a hidden reason why they might want to attack somebody else, or like information that I'm not privy to, whatever. What really gets my gears is people not having a reason for attacking somebody, or like splitting damage badly.
Dude, dice roll.
Is the big
you don't
one
want to make enemies at the table, dude.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how it is. Yeah. No. I'm also guilty of not attacking sometimes when like it's just free. It's like if I'm playing Gitrog or something, it's like, I'm not bluffing anything really by holding up this Llanowar Elves or something. Like I might as well just get in.
I will say though, the opposite is also, I think that fits pretty well with this, is also one of my pet peeves. The like 3 damage or blocking a Timna.
Yeah.
3 damage.
Yeah, just not considering the other side at all.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah, one thing about the
like that was always my annoyance with like Kess players sometimes, of like Kess just like trying to like in the Thrastimna meta, just like Kess players swinging out with Kess, and it's like that's not what that body's for.
Yeah, well, one thing about the attacking with like Llanowar and stuff is the 1 damage sometimes matters. I've won several games on 1 life. Like that's not crazy. And the small little chips can definitely add up. Like it can take you down to like, wow, because sometimes there's like, oh man, I need to win this crypt roll to win the game, otherwise I like, and those chip damages can sometimes be the difference between one more crypt roll or one more card off of Sylvan Library or Atlas or whatever. Yeah,
even tapping your City of Brass or fetching one more time, or for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so my pet peeves is fetches, and this is kind of just like a quality of life thing where just crack your fetch right away. And the one thing that we do in our play group is you crack your fetch right away, and we kind of have a grace period with like assuming the best case timing, right? So it's like, oh, if you really want to change your fetch target for some reason, you could. But it's really just, let's not every time hold fetches to the turn before your before like the end step before your turn, to get maximum information. I guess it's less of a thing now that opposition agent is running around. People are more cautious about that. But yeah, let's get the game moving along.
Let's tack 30 seconds onto the end of everyone's turn just for
fetch, shuffle. Oh god, yeah, no. Just declare your fetch, really... get the card. One thing I like to do is take the card that I'm gonna find. Like sometimes it ends up being like, I'll go, if I'm playing Gitrog, it's like I'm gonna get an Overgrown Tomb like end step, but I reserve the right to go get a Bayou instead if I want to interact or something. But the one thing I'll do is I'll keep the fetch in play, and then I'll slide the card that I'm trying to tutor for underneath it, and then I'll be like, okay, cracked my fetch, and then the card's already in play, just to save time on shuffling and whatnot. Yep, that's mine. Morgan?
Mine is myopic wheels, which is where you look at your hand and you go, this hand's not very good, I'm going to cast this Wheel of Fortune. And then you don't look at anything else, like, the fact that one of your opponents just played out like 3 mana producing permanents on their turn and has 2 cards in hand. And then, you cast a wheel that draws you, it takes you from like 4 okay cards to 7 cards and takes, 2 of your opponents from like 1 or 2 cards to 7 cards.
Yeah.
And just... it's sort of it's the perpetual issue with group hug, which is that whatever group hug you're doing, benefits the person who was lacking in that department the most.
Yeah.
If you give everyone extra mana, then the person with the best card draw wins. If you give everyone extra cards, the person with the best ramp wins. Like, I think that people just they look at their hand, go, this isn't great, and throw out the wheel, and then
that's why I'm pretty low on wheels, honestly.
It's also the issue with like people want to play their cards inherently.
Yeah.
So like they're gonna mentally bias toward the lines that let them play their cards rather than the lines that don't. So like for a lot of the time, like people just like won't sandbag cards.
Yeah, I stopped sandbagging
that, like,
mana crypts and stuff because like people just YOLO wheels too much. I'm like, well, I've been burned. I've been burned on the like, someone dumping their hand and YOLO wheeling, even though like, people are it's just gassing everyone up gassing everyone else up as well. Like I was trying to like, I'm gonna sandbag the mana crypt, that way I can like power out a big play next turn, like cast a Gitrog and people won't see it coming. That's like. Dude, nowadays it's like just dump everything that you can in play.
Jam it.
Yeah. The myopic wheels thing is, I think, I've been pretty low on wheels even before Hull Breacher, but now that like everyone's just got Hull Breacher sitting in their hands and it's a nasty potential blowout, I'm even lower on wheels now. Okay.
Yeah.
Read.
This is sort of a big one. Is people conceding boring games or like stacksy games, even if they still have a chance to win. That gets me a bunch. That really gets my knickers in a knot. Like it's like when like Oh, there's a rule of law in play, and I'm playing a turbo deck. I don't want to play anymore. It's like you're playing like 5 outs to this. You can still like draw into like something to get you out of the situation. They're just like, nope, I don't want to play this game anymore. I didn't get to do my thing in the first 3 turns of the game. I'm just done.
It's the Woody meme or the Toy Story meme. I don't want to play with you anymore. Like
just drops the
the cEDH game. Yeah, like you get your one spell case. Like I don't want to play with you anymore.
And also like sort of on that as well, like this doesn't really go like this isn't only just for conceding, like this sort of also extends to like what I call soft conceding, which is where like you just sort of like it's like you're playing a turbo deck, somebody plays a rule of law, and then you just like tap out for the rest of the game, or just like become mentally absent for the rest of the game. Or like
honestly, I think that bothers me more than conceding. At least when you concede, you're like letting everyone else know that you're not like, it's like, okay, I don't want to play this game. I'm not willing to put in the effort. They know they can decide to play with you in the future or not. But when you're just like, you're just like, all right, pull out the switch and and then it's like, it's your turn. Oh, are you passing priority? Oh yeah, I'm not doing anything. It's like, just please.
So my next one is kind of in line with this, so I'll tie it in and then I'll pick a different one. But just on the point of soft conceding, I do think there's a bit of a like kind of this something of the social contract of EDH or of cEDH, where if someone is basically completely out of the game, either like they're stacked out and their hand is empty and they're not really doing anything, but it's relevant that they're in the game because they could have some piece of interaction, or they're there for carpet, or they're there as like just to soak up Tymna damage. It's like it's typical to be like I'll stay in the game as long as I'm like until you guys kill me. That is when I'm fine with people kind of like more or less checking out. But at the same time, I think it's just common courtesy to remove them from the game. Through lethal, like just the putting them out of their misery, like even sometimes when it's not right, like or the most optimal line. I know there was a game somewhat recently where like we were hanging out in like a voice chat and doing something else, and one of the players was just stuck in his game. I think it was like a Grand Arbiter and like 2 mono blue decks or 3 mono blue decks, and he was like functionally dead, but he was just being trapped there because the mono blue deck just couldn't pressure life totals, and I just felt so bad for him. So sometimes just if you want to uphold the cEDH social contract of not outright conceding to affect the game, the common courtesy in response is to let that player leave by killing them. But yeah, and then to tie on to yours, my other one was salty scooping, which is kind of self-explanatory. Oh, you countered my spell, or you did something. You know what? I'm just gonna concede this game. This isn't really like, I guess, specific to cEDH. It's a problem at all power levels of EDH, but doesn't change the fact that I find it super annoying anyway.
I think I've scooped to a counterspell exactly once. Like not I guess you have the win, I concede, but like actually I haven't lost this game, but I conceded, and it was because 2 people spaghettied out 1,000,000 mana rocks, and then I played a null rod, and one of them pacted it and couldn't pay for the pact. I was like, all right, I'm not playing this anymore. Okay, so I guess my next one is sloppy priority management. So I think this is especially big when there's triggers involved, like heuristic study and mystic remora triggers, where people, they don't return priority. Like, you cast a spell, there's a mystic remora trigger, everyone passes, the trigger resolves, there's another round of priority, it starts with the person whose turn it is. I think a lot of this often gets missed, and a lot of the time, like, it is a fine line to walk, because like I'm definitely, sometimes I get annoyed, I try and play like properly, and I cast Lano or Elves, and I say I'm paying for the heuristic study, and no one says anything, I'm like, okay, does it resolve? Can we move on? But, then when people start casting, like, quote-unquote important spells, and then they're just sort of, like, really blasé about who has priority, who's supposed to respond.
I'm gonna cast this. Oh, I have a counter spell for that. Where hold up, let me cast this counter spell. Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely.
It is. Yeah. Incredibly annoying. So actually, I do have one that sort of goes along with that, which is not like in sloppy priority management, but is when somebody is either executing a combo or going through a sequence on their turn or something like that during like an important turn, and shortcutting at the exact wrong time to shortcut. So like shortcutting like halfway through a combo, and then people are like, whoa, hold up. First of all, like just like you have to go back to the start and do the thing, or like not tracking their floating mana correctly and just being like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and this, and I'm gonna have like this extra mana floating or whatever, or like not tracking cards in the exact zones they should be in on like a very important turn is like a huge pet peeve of mine, because it complicates those turns a lot more than they should, and a lot of the time it leads to like what should be like game rule infractions and stuff, just because it's not being like done cleanly. Like I think that's something that like everybody should be able to execute their combo in their deck like technically and like step by step and very cleanly, because if you're not, it just makes everything so messy.
Dude, just say Gitrog players, man. This is the most obvious subtweet I've ever seen.
But it's not even Gitrog players. It's like I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna float this mana. I'm gonna do I understand like not explicitly tracking floating mana if you're just doing like a dork into cast commander turn, or like just like you're casting 3 insignificant spells that nobody's going to attempt to counter, whatever. But like when you start not tracking your mana floating, or like colors of mana floating, or like physically doing any of that, or like not tracking exact storm count or whatever, or just shortcutting through all that stuff when you're doing an important turn, it pisses me off to no end.
Yeah, like if you tap a land and a crypt or the land and a soaring and play Sylvan Library, and then tap 2 more lands and play Timna, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, we understood what happened here.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I cast Dark Ritual, and then Jeska's Will, and then Ad Nauseum, and then Demonic Tutor. It's like, wait, how much mana did you have floating again? Yeah. And then this Mana Vault, which I'll tap. Yeah.
Or just like playing out like, oh, I'm gonna play out these 3 rocks at once without like going through the sequence. Like, I'm gonna play these 3 signets. And it's like, first of all,
so they're all in the stack at the same time. Yeah. Mind break trap. That should be a legal thing. If your opponents are not doing the proper priority pass, you should be able to mind break trap all their spells. Okay, Reed, you're up next.
Yeah, sure. I'll do another one, I guess. God, okay. This one is a very specific one, but submitting undertested decks to the database. Oh my god, is it such a pain? It's just, there's so much. I'm sort of like, don't feel discouraged to submit your new brew to the database. Just put in the base amount of effort, because oh my god, there's some like, they're just, every submission cycle we get lists that are like, basically what ends up happening is like it gets submitted, and then like the deck changes like 40 cards from the time that it was submitted to the time that it gets reviewed, and then like another 10 cards from the time that it gets reviewed to the time that it goes in the database. And it's just like, just have like a semi-finalized like tested list before submitting, please.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling through all my deck lists and finding all the ones that I just want to submit now.
Yeah, I'm gonna write a bot that just automatically submits all my like random brews from like whatever deck building site I'm using just to the database.
It just
automates it.
It just monitors the Moxfield like new deck lists thing.
But here's the thing: I'm only gonna have it submit the ones that I save as unlisted. If I save it publicly, it won't submit it.
Oh my god,
dude! So I've got one that's kind of like similar to that, which is people need to stop caring so much about the freaking decklist database or like these official resources.
Please.
Who cares what Reed thinks? Okay, that's the, you know, because I think it causes some problems in terms of like every new set, it's a race for whatever reason. There's this stupid race to get their list published, and it results in something that, you know, many of us complain about, which is primers, like air quotes primers. Yeah. Which is, you know, a card just got spoiled. Let me write some like very, very basic information about it. That's like you can't possibly know because you haven't even, there's been no time to test the deck. The spoiler literally came out today and you threw together like a generic blue black X shell for this deck. It's like, okay. Like,
and then you don't write a primer, you write like a combo line, and then
yeah. Oh my god, you write a combo repository and call it a primer.
Yeah, no, that's, people need to stop doing that, and I think a lot of that stems from this kind of desire to have their name like tied to the deck or something, or to have their list be the one on the database. It's like, dude, the deck list database is not the ultimate validator of your deck's worth. Have some confidence in yourself. Yeah.
Okay, but I will say, for me, I think the primer speed circle jerk bothers me less than the primer length circle jerk.
I will admit that I'm a contributor to that.
Are you?
That being said, yeah. Have you never read the Shuffle Primer?
I did.
It's like 12,000 words.
Okay, no.
Nothing beats the Gitrog primer, dude. The collaborative Gitrog primer.
Are you sure the Corvold primer isn't longer?
Well, ours is significantly larger than the Corvold primer.
Okay. Oh my god.
See,
Morgan,
he cares.
Sitting in a call with the people that you hate the most.
By the fact that I thought that the Corvold primer might have been longer. This is exactly the problem.
This is the exact issue.
To be fair, I feel like Gitrog out of any of the lists has like the most combo variations and things that probably need to be mentioned.
Can we just start calling primers over a certain length dissertations and then start having them peer reviewed by other people in the community?
Primer. Super long primers stop being primers because they're not useful as an introductory resource.
Yeah. They're compendiums, they're collected volumes, dude. Yeah.
The omnibus of Gitrog documents.
So I guess mine was kind of a tack on point to Ree's one, but a separate one I have is just threat assessment in general.
Could you try and be a little less specific? I feel like you know that
yeah, people are so blasé about just counterspelling things on like for like the base levels, like, you know, oh, that's a threat, I'm going to counterspell that, without thinking like, oh, you know, I'm about to enter next player's turn, and now all of a sudden the entire pod is drained of interaction. I've seen Morgan, I know when I've played with you cast a spell and you have like this look in your eyes that's like, please, just this once, don't realize that if you try and counter the spell, I'm gonna have to fight back to resolve it, and then we're all gonna lose. Like, just think that little bit ahead and realize that this is not the, you know, must answer threat at the table. It's, you know, the next player. Yeah, that's I also find that a bit annoying. Just, you know, see, EDH Magic, it's a mental game. Use your noodle.
Yeah, I think I sort of have to tack onto that with, like, essentially when you try and take someone out of the game and then they fight back and then you blame them for going shields down. I think that happens a lot, and, like, you know, some people, they fight over things that they don't need. But I'm talking, you know, they're behind on mana, they're behind on cards, and they try and resolve some sort of value engine, and then you counter it, and then they counter back, because it's like, okay, if I'm going to sit here, you know, I'm playing like some Thrasios deck, I'm going to sit here on 3 mana with 3 cards in hand, and like, I don't have this heuristic study. I'm super out of this game, so like, I have to fight. And then, you know, halfway through the turn cycle, someone else wins, and you go, "Why didn't you just let me counter your heuristic study?" It's like, well, because if my heuristic study didn't resolve, I was out of the game.
That's actually a really good kind of tack on pet peeve. That people getting salty or kind of moaning about oh, you're misplaying. It's no, dude, I'm trying to win. So sometimes it's like, oh, you fed the fish, and feeding the fish is obviously a very contentious issue where it's like, oh, you should never feed the fish. You know what? Sometimes as like I'm gonna get Rog, like I'll have to play out my mana rock so that I can set up for my get Rog in the next turn, or set up my mana crypt, Sylvan Library, or something like that. Like sometimes that is the correct play because I'm trying to win the game. But don't like just mindlessly feed the fish. It's not always correct to never feed the fish.
I'm gonna play this talisman into a ponder. Pass turn.
Yeah. See, if someone plays a ponder and then plays a ponder into a fish and then a land, you don't know if they misplayed. If they play a land and then a ponder, you can be pretty sure that they misplayed.
So what you're saying is, when I'm intentionally feeding a fish because I'm a terrible person, I have to always plant the shadow of like the seed of doubt in the table's mind as to whether or not it was a required play.
Yeah,
but you could just not cast the ponder. You could just not cast.
No, yeah. So people who are complaining about people feeding the fish, at least make sure that it's look at the perspective of whether or not that was a necessary play for them to try and win the game themselves, and not just, you king made someone else because you're playing spells into this fish, and I would have won the game if you hadn't have done that. It's like, yeah, maybe that's why I did that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't believe you did this and didn't let me win the game. Okay, so I guess my next one is the complete abandonment of old tech, and I think the poster child of this for me was has to be Isochron Scepter, but there's other things where like something new comes out and you want to play with it and it's good. It might even be better than the old thing, which is fine. But then like instead of going, okay, this isn't sort of the best anymore, this is probably better in a lot of situations, you essentially just go like, this is unplayable, it's garbage, no one should ever put it in their deck, and then you never look at it again.
Okay, boomer.
And yeah, like
old tech is old. We get out of here.
We've done
Cheese Rush is sort of just like the embodiment of this pet peeve.
Yeah, pretty much. We're like, wait a minute, but if we played good cards,
if we played Thrasios and Dorks and Isochron Scepter and all this proven tech instead of just playing the new stuff.
Yeah, I had one called New Shiny Toys, which is just people's obsession with the latest stuff. It's like, man, remember Zur? Remember Cass?
Yeah, okay. I guess Zur is probably another example of that. Like, Zur is still fine, and yet it's like, oh, why wouldn't you just play, like, I mean, sure, there might even be better options than Zur, like, probably Timnachrom is just a better option for, like, a similar sort of shell, but then yeah, translating that into like, oh, you should just like, no one should ever play Zur. Zur is completely unplayable as a deck. Like, people will look at like random 2-color meme commanders and just go like, oh yeah, those are fine, and then look at Zur and be like, why would you play Zur? Like,
isn't like, actually on that note, isn't Zur like the embodiment of the current like idea to play stuff like Krom Tevesh or stuff, where it's like, okay, I want to play this like really fast storm deck, but I want to have value in the command zone. Like, isn't Zur the embodiment of value in the command zone?
True.
Yeah, like
my commander is a heuristic study. My commander is a mystic remora.
For example,
my commander's an Adnos.
I don't think it's a hot take that Zur is better than Kinnan.
But some people may think that it is.
But if you ask people about Zur and you ask people about Kinnan, I feel like you'll get a lot more people saying Kinnan's like a deck that, if you ask, should I play Kinnan, you'll get a lot more yeses than if you ask, should I play Zur?
Okie dokie. Reed?
Yeah, so the next one is sort of like it's sort of a tack onto the other one about fetches, where the one that peeves me to no end is people unconditionally always fetching a Shockland tap at end of turn in like very color intensive lists, because it is so not always the correct play, and it's so annoying to see people just like, well, I don't want to take damage in the future for this, and I might as well get the deck thing out of the way now while I can, and like just not waiting the extra draw step and like fetching a duel. It's so annoying. Like, what happens if you draw a Brainstorm and that was your last fetch? What happens if you draw like a Grand Abolsher and you need like double colors or something? Just like, God, it's so annoying.
Yeah, well, kind of related to that, I mean, one thing that I kind of learned playing Gitrog a lot is that you don't always want to get out. So I mean, this is sort of related. I just wanted to throw this in as like a bit of advice. In terms of thinking about using your fetches and your colors, is that, you know, sometimes people go, okay, turn one fetch by you, and then their next fetch is going to be for an overgrown tomb, when that's not necessarily what you always want to be doing, because sometimes it's good to keep that card in your deck so that you could fetch it later when you're so let's say I go turn one, you know, crack from a Bayou, play some stuff, play Gitrog, and then my next land drop I play a fetch. The fact that I can then fetch for an overgrown tomb and hit either color is pretty important in some cases. So at least thinking about the fact that having access to your colors and getting more information with your fetches and you know, being patient, I think is pretty important. All right.
Also, just watching people try to manage like mana bases during play in high color decks and doing it ineffectively is like the most frustrating thing for me.
Stop fetching Tropical Island.
Stop. Just stop.
Okay, so my pet peeve is 1 trillion deck servers. Every single commander set is the cEDH Discord community gets saturated with like, you know, 20 new servers like for any random commander. Okay, I feel like this is
legendary
tangentially
creature
related to the Primer Rush.
Go make a Discord server.
I think it's tangentially related to the Primer Rush, where people are like, if I control the deck server for this, you know, random niche commander that was just spoiled, then I have all the power. You know, it's like, chill. Yeah, I think a lot of deck servers could just be kind of consolidated into kind of like Grexis Mean Girls, that kind of like super servers related to colors. The mono red server, which is actually the biggest super server in terms of sheer number of channels and decks. It's wild. I think there's like 20.
I mean, the Paradox is also pretty big.
Morgan, go open the mono red server and
I
just
refuse.
scroll.
Yeah, I mean, we could also probably aggregate Gitrog into just like a unplayable trash Discord.
Yeah.
You know, save some time.
Let's be honest.
Gitrog
the graveyard,
isn't even a deck server
graveyard could
anymore.
Definitely absorb the Gitrog server now.
What do you mean absorb the Gitrog server absorbs other servers? How can the biggest server be absorbed by a smaller server?
Okay, Morgan, how's the graveyard going, huh?
It exists, and people say stuff in it occasionally.
But yeah,
I actually, okay. I did in fact, I haven't figured it out yet, but I have refused to make a Hermit Druid server, and instead have just sort of rolled Hermit Druid into the Hulk server.
Bless your soul, Reed. Bless your soul.
So, you know, I'm doing my part.
I feel like that could just go in like patch notes as like, you know, like removed redundancy on deprecated features.
Yeah. God.
Also, I don't think any servers want to absorb the Gitrog server, Morgan. You gotta consider that fact. I'm
sure we could find some.
Maybe the Ukima and Kazur server. They're also cursed. Pretty cursed server.
There's gotta be like some server that would want it. I bet you the Tashar server would take it.
Dude, instead of grouping based off like deck similarity, you group them based off server culture.
Yes.
This is the collection of all the cursed servers and communities in cEDH. Yeah. Okay. Morgan.
Yeah. My next pet peeve is removing the hate piece. I mean, obviously, not always, and not if you can actually translate that into a win. But so many times I see things like, man, this is really annoying for my deck, and it's like actually just crippling for some other deck.
Or it's like actively the only like nail holding back another deck from just winning outright.
Yeah, like you're playing like you're playing like Thrasios Tymna, Nas Consult, and there's a Drannith Magistrate, and you're like, man, I really wish I could just cast this Tymna and draw some cards. And then there's like some entirely commander-centric deck. There's like Elsha across the table, and you're like,
it's just like,
yeah, I think removing this Drannith Magistrate is a good plan.
Or like the breach player just like smiles ear to ear.
Yeah, it's just like it's like as soon as you point a removal spell, it's just ready to slam 6 rituals into Elsha to win the game, and you're just like, yeah, I think this is worth so I can cast my Tymna.
Okie dokie. Reed?
This one's sort of a culture one, but God, the culture around not allowing proxies grinds my gears. It's a big one for me.
Especially now more than ever.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Reed, maybe if you weren't a poor, then
if I could actually afford cards. I'll have you know that I've been using, I think, the same proxies in the 5-card list currently, but what was Thrasios Tymna for like 3 years now. I think I own the original Survival of the Fittest proxy that I printed out for Virals like 4 years ago when I first proxied up the deck, and it's still being used actively.
You see, Reed, if you don't have a top hat and monocle, you don't deserve to play EDH.
We need to start teaching proper table manners for cEDH tables.
Yeah, if you want Into the North to abandon our unabashedly pro proxy stance, well, I guess you just have to give us enough money so that we can all buy the cards.
I mean, quite honestly, if you're
here at Into the North, we're all about integrity.
If you're part of the no proxy lobby, if you want to shovel some money our way, we're extremely pliable.
So I will say that, I fall a bit into this mentality, and sometimes I know like some friends of our show do, which is we are fine with other people playing proxies, but it feels like I sometimes won't, like, at least in mid power, like I don't proxy any cards in my decks, and I know Zach, friend of the show, doesn't play with cards he doesn't own in his cEDH decks, which, there's a bit of a argument in the community about people being like, I don't want to play against your not fully tuned deck. I want you to, proxy everything. It's like, at some point you kind of got to be like, that's your play style, play if you want to do it that way. But it's not, I think that the problem is people caring what other people do in terms of playing with proxies, not like your own self-imposed rules or whatever.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with people who own all their cards. I don't think anyone has an issue with that. And I have said, you shouldn't approach Magic with the idea that it's free. Like, it's a hobby, and typically you spend money on your hobbies. But obviously, you should spend what you can afford on your hobbies. And
I don't know of many people that can afford cEDH.
Yeah, there's kind of a free rider problem, right? Where if you proxy everything 100% and you spend $0 on Magic in general, like, you're not spending money at your LGS. You're not, contributing to those small businesses and that are help, cultivating the communities and providing people space to play. You're not, buying WotC products. So you're not, funding the development costs and whatever for the cards that you are actually enjoying. Like, there are costs associated with producing these Magic cards. So it's as Morgan was saying, it's a hobby. Spend what you can afford if you enjoy time with it, but like, no, don't expect people to dump whatever the hell $5,000 on dual lands, on OG duels or whatever.
Well, it's like buying cEDH for the most part at this point doesn't even directly support the scene like Wizards.
Yeah,
no,
you're supposed to make
LGSs,
money if you don't
LGSs,
spend $5,000 on a time twister.
You're buying time twisters from independent buyers that are your local LGS, and the money doesn't go anywhere close to Wizards because the cards have been out of print for 20 years. Like,
no, but even cards, I think that's why I said the LGS thing is because even if you're buying cards that are out of print, like even if it's not directly going to WotC, the fact that you're supporting the game stores is pretty important.
What I'm saying is in a lot of cases, I don't think people are buying a lot of the stuff from their cEDH decks from LGSs is the issue. Where like just because like you're a lot less likely to like straight up buy a time twister in real life from LGS rather than like go shopping online to try to find the best deal for one. Where it's just like, yeah, I think that's just an issue. Absolutely support your local LGS and buy the actual accessible cards that they do have that you're willing to buy from an LGS there. Just like I'm saying, even if people bought their cEDH completely, I don't think that a majority of that money would be going toward either LGSs or Wizards.
Yeah. And I guess on the proxies point, a sometimes pet peeve, and this is like a bit of a hot button issue, and it's very gray area, which is what constitutes like cEDH decks and when does a budget deck become
God,
not
do we
cEDH?
have to get into this now?
Well, the point is like my pet peeve is sometimes I want to have like just a game of regular cEDH and don't want to have to like I want every deck to be at the same power level and not have like just essentially be playing 3-player, right? And that's at the very skewed end of the spectrum is when like just some decks can't compete or do anything meaningful in the game if they aren't of a certain power level. And if you're not going to proxy, because I think one thing about being pro proxy is that you kind of want and encourage people to proxy so that you can maintain that level of game. And it really boils down to everyone being on the same page regarding expectations of the game. It's like, okay, everyone, this time we're going to do full power proxied meta decks. Like established tier 1 meta decks, and then maybe a different game you can do off meta fringe or something like that, or the expectation is that I'm going to do a bit of fringe and some meta, like so long as everyone's on the same page, that's all good. But I'm just, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people try and like foist their decks onto other people if that's not like the agreed upon thing. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm playing against like 3 cEDH decks, 2 cEDH decks and a high power deck. Like, yeah, not always a fan of that, but that can be resolved with like a rule 0 discussion. Okay, so my next pet peeve is people falling for Reed's whining. And people wonder why
he just keeps getting away with it.
He does. That's first. Well, how is Reed such a good player? How does he get all these wins? People fall for this shit all the time, man. I don't understand. How do you do it? But no, don't. Just because someone is grab your be like, oh, how could you do this play or blah blah blah. It's like they realize that they're playing a game and sometimes they're trying to take advantage of you. And don't get upset about it. That's part of the game and politics and all that. But don't be so naive and trusting. I definitely fall for that. I definitely fall for that. So
it's not like I lie all the time. It's just that sometimes it's embellished.
I think that like on a similar vein, if you are actually giving someone genuine play advice, often it's better to do it comfortably after the fact.
Yeah.
So that it's clear that
it doesn't come off as politicking. Yeah.
You don't have some motivated reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mean, I will, even when I'm not trying to actively politic, like I will make the active effort to stop somebody from making an obvious misplay that will also impact me in a negative fashion, right? Like,
yeah.
it's just you have to be aware of. I mean, we went over this on our threat assessment episode, right? Of like you have to be aware of other people's motives and what they might want out of what they're saying to try to get you to do. But that doesn't mean that they don't also like the thing that they're trying to convince you to do isn't also in your best interests. You just have to consider it.
Okay, I guess this is my last one, and this specifically pertains to online play and spell table in particular, but randomizing multiple times. That's not how randomness works.
How dare you?
That's not how randomness works. I will expand that to just generally not understanding how randomness works. So, complaints about the cockatrice shuffler also very frustrating.
Oh, wait, yes. Morgan, how did you not put deterministic wins and stuff on your pet peeves list? That's
because since Gitrog died, no one talked about determinism anymore.
I think the best way to randomize pods or to determine who goes first is using the favorite method.
If you say cut for value, I'm actually just gonna leave.
Cutting to highest monetary value in the deck. Oh, dude, it's the ultimate meme way to do it because Magic is paying to win, right?
I think my preferred fashion is cutting to the worst proxy. So somebody's got like 75% size of a card cropped badly and it's black and white, then they get to go first.
Actually, yeah, I'm gonna throw that on. That's a pet peeve of mine, is just bad proxies.
Yeah.
If you're gonna proxy, please make the card like distinguishable.
Legible.
Like I want to be able to, if you're not gonna spend the money on the cards, I don't know how much, like, not everyone has access to like colored printers or whatever, but if possible, like colored proxies are much preferable, because people are so familiar with card arts, whereas if the entire deck is black and white and you've got like proxy basics or something, it's like I don't know what the heck is going on in your board state, especially over webcam. Very, very hard to understand. So a bit of a pet peeve. I understand not everyone can do color printing, but if possible, that is definitely preferable. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, this is a fun one. This one is me actually being the worst, but it's also I get annoyed when other people aren't also the actual worst because it's like optimal play. Is that something that bugs me is seeing other people not priority bully enough, which means like they'll just like the person right before them in turn order cast an ad nauseam and they'll immediately go, all right, counter it without like any consideration as to does anybody else at this table have interaction? Can I just pass priority? Can I let somebody else deal with this? Like, just no thought to that, immediately snapping off the interaction. It's just annoying because like I feel like it's something that everybody should be doing and people just don't sometimes.
I will say I also get annoyed when people refer to that as like somehow like bullying or like act like assessing that somebody after you in priority has an answer and passing priority is like some like
toxic,
ultra scummy try-hard toxic play. It's like, no, that's just like
it's how the game works.
Yeah, like that's not nearly the same thing as like, the mana bullying or like
yeah, definitely. I don't know, it's just watching people just like make obvious
if you let other people spend resources, then you have more resources.
Okay, so my next one is not understanding the deck strategy dynamics of the pod. So things like, is my deck going to win the long game? Who's going to win the long game? Who needs to win early? Like, so who's going to be essentially like, very desperate to try and combo, so keeping up interaction for those turns. Targeting, who's even playing control anymore? But targeting the control player for attacks is actually reasonable. I used to play with a Tasker player, like hard, like Tasker, like I would say Tasker control, and part of his whining was, I think, obviously like strategic in the same way as Reed was like, I'm not playing ad nauseum, I'm the control player, why are you attacking me? It's like, bro, I'm attacking you because I know I need to start chipping away at your life total.
I had to get you dead in the long game.
Yeah, exactly. So, being cognizant of that and those dynamics is pretty important, I think. And it's kind of annoying when people are just, treating all decks the same or being ignorant of that those dynamics.
Yeah, attacking the Nos player is a good heuristic, but the thing about heuristics is that they're useful as a general rule, or something as a baseline, but there are lots of things that can affect situationally what you should actually be doing.
Yeah, it's like once the Nos player is below a certain life total, it's like with Zur. When I was playing a lot of Zur, there's a point when you stop being able to reasonably.
It's just like
it doesn't even. Yeah, well, there's different points where you need to assess. It's like how much mana to life, like because you need a certain amount of cards to overcome a certain deficiency in mana, right? But the more mana you have access to, the fewer cards you need. So kind of figuring out where that balance is for both ad nauseam players or Zur players or something. It's like there's a point when it's important to get in a bunch of damage initially and then switch over to someone else. Morgan, your list is empty. Do you want to stump on determinism for a bit, or
this one's a little outdated.
Misappropriation of mathematical terms.
Yeah, or I mean, yeah, just generally, determinism was a big one where people, in the context of usually complaining about the loop and shortcut rules, would refer to things as deterministic when they're not. And yeah, just all the discussions about how we should make it so that your, complex mathematical proof and the convergence should mean that everyone just lets you win and gives up and goes home. So, and I guess we can expand that a little bit to people just not understanding sort of not the rules specifically, but like sort of the underlying the framework that underlies the rules, and then making a bunch of sweeping claims that don't make sense.
Reed?
Yeah. So actually, I'll let you do yours first on this topic.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was gonna tack mine on to yours. Yeah. Okay, so I actually kind of have two that kind of tie into this, which is inappropriately appropriating 60 card terminology in deck names and referring to things, and then just deck naming in general in cEDH. So one is things like tempo or aggro don't really make sense. They don't translate like one-to-one in the same way they do in 60 card. So using those terminologies is very confusing, especially when you're just using it one for one, because there's people who play 60 card have a very specific understanding of these terms. So then when you're using them, it's just going to lead to confusion when they're like, wait a second, this is not playing like how I think it should based off my understanding. So with tempo, like Najeela is not, Najeela tempo is not really like a 60 card tempo deck.
I think it certainly is less now than it was before.
Yeah, before like Oracle, when it was actually like more on the Najeela plan than on the Oracle plan. It certainly was, I think, but yeah.
I'm not gonna get into this, but I don't completely agree. But then another one is like Gitrog Dredge. It's like Gitrog has dredge cards in it.
It's the worst name ever.
It's so bad. Gitrog plays nothing like dredge. It's not doing any like dredgy things. The only thing that it runs cards with dredge for combo purposes, right? Like it's super annoying because it kind of gives people the wrong impression of what the deck is trying to do. The deck should just be called the Gitrog Monster or like Gitrog Dakmor combo or something like that. And then along the lines is just deck naming in cEDH in general. And I say this while also like actively contributing to the problem. I'm self-aware, okay, and most people, I think, some people, a lot of people are self-aware with how bad cEDH deck naming is, where it's completely
nonsense. Yeah,
it's nonsense and just actively confusing for a lot of. It's like, okay, farm is the worst one. It's the most egregious name in recent memory. But I was complaining of this back when there was a trend of naming decks after other decks. So 4-color Virals. Subtweet
Sorry, the best thing about this is I don't think it was even a trend. It was just all of my deck names.
Dude, it was so tilted because I was like, what is 4-color Virals? I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's no Viral. What the heck is going on? And it's
4-color Rashmi, yeah.
4-color Rashmi.
Definitely not Virals.
Wait, did you guys put the Rashmi back in that deck? Because that card should not be in that deck.
It was in for a bit. Yeah, I think it actually might still be because it's pretty good right now. I don't know. It's nice.
Farm is
just the thing.
Is
Farm's
now
terrible.
The worst one because it basically only means the card. The deck has ad nauseum.
It's meaningless.
It's meaningless.
No. It has ad nauseum and like at least one more piece of fast mana or ritual than sort of the baseline package. That's.
I don't even think that's true anymore, man.
Doesn't it just like true. It needs something that says draw a card in the command zone and an ad nauseum?
No, it
Gitrog
definitely
is a
doesn't.
farm deck, man. Gitrog is a farm deck. Don't at me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's gotten worse since I made my, cEDH players adding Culling the Weak to a NOS deck. Is this farm?
if you can call Gitrog Monster a farm deck by whatever definition you're using, like something has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, you have to have like the exclusion area of if you could conceivably call these decks farm decks under your current rules, you need to go revise your rules.
Yeah, no, there's
it's like
farm is.
I think Virals is closer to a farm deck, but it should never be called a farm deck. Actually. Am I wrong?
We'd have to do list for list comparisons, but I think it's close. Like, yeah, maybe. But
I think
they're both.
I think Virals runs a higher percentage of fast mana. I think.
I don't think so. Gitrog runs almost every piece of fast mana.
I think you run bigger fast mana. I think like Virals just runs a lot of it in general, though. I don't know.
Like what do you think you're running that Gitrog isn't?
Let me check. We can settle this right now. We have time to fill.
Yeah, so my pet peeve is turning every minor claim into like a competition.
My pet peeve is Lyndon bringing up Gitrog in every single episode of Into the North.
Hey, it's better than Callahan bringing up Lavinia in every episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast.
I was actually about to... No, okay. I'll see if we can get to the end before I mention this. I'll ignore that. That being said, on the name thing, while I totally agree with you with like misnaming, like misappropriating terms from 60 card and making decks confusing and like misdescribing how decks work in the title, and also using bad deck names like farm, I also think that we frankly need more ridiculous deck names, and that original ridiculous deck names are fantastic for the format. For interest.
I think honestly, I think it's fine if your deck name is actually meaningless. But like it has to be actually and clearly meaningless. It looks meaningful, but it's actually meaningless. It has
to be actually meaningless, or it has to like be a really funny, hilarious name that's also sort of tied to how the deck functions. Like on like the topic of Lavinia, like Pools Closed is a great name for that deck.
That's a really good name.
Right? Like just fantastic.
But the one
prime rib.
The one thing though, I do think that so you said it's good for the format to have these kind of ridiculous names. I think that's coming from the position of someone who's entrenched in the community and knows it's like, man, I want these interesting names because it's funny and it's like interesting, keep things fresh. But I think from the perspective of a new player, it's very like it could be a large barrier and just make things more difficult to get someone into EDH or sorry, to get someone into cEDH when there's just all this jargon they need to kind of get around.
So yes, but that being said, I think like a large part of my continued enjoyment and also like interest is, especially in Eternal formats, like finding random legacy and vintage decks that are named something random and being able to find out the lore of them going back a decade to like
Honestly,
when the name came around. Like I find that awesome, and I think that like having that in a format is great, quite honestly.
Honestly,
And quite honestly, sorry, I'll let you go, but like one of the reasons why I hate watching Standard now and why I've sort of stopped keeping up with Standard is because the decks are all super generic and the names suck.
Really?
Bro.
That's okay. I'm certainly not getting on board with that take. I was just gonna say that
I wasn't expecting you to, but yeah.
I was just gonna say that like I think that the way a lot of the decks with meme names are on the database actually works very well. Like you have like Timnatana Reanimator, and then the deck's called the Pet Cemetery. And it's like, okay, Timnatana Reanimator. I understand vaguely what this deck is doing. And then you then come up with your clever meme name. Or like, you know, Prime Rib is listed, I mean, it's just listed under Vanifar, but, you know, it could be called Vanifar Combo or whatever. Like, I think that having dual names is probably not a bad...
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why Four Color Ashmi eventually became Curiosity Control, right? Or Curious Control.
Yeah, I think that's a much better name, yeah.
But I mean, I guess. I mean, even Curious Control is like a bit like
I just hate saying Curiosity.
If I
Control.
look at the heading Curious Control, I'm not like I'm gonna go like, why is this called Curious Control? Not, oh, I know what this deck is doing.
Yeah. Okay, is that it for our pet peeves?
I think so. I think we got there.
Right on.
Actually, one more. People circle jerking about tier lists in all contexts. If you're
on any side,
on any
all
side,
sides suck.
Nobody's
like, absolved of blame.
Here's the tier list, you know, and link that like that tapped out list that, you know, the one thing that commanders by power level or whatever, the worst.
Okay.
Tier lists are impossible. The worst.
Note to our editor, please cut this out, because when we eventually do our Into the North tier lists episode where we rank order every cEDH deck, and you know we're gonna want to we don't want to make ourselves look like hypocrites. So I mean, you can just leave this out of the show.
But that's not circle jerking about tier lists. That's making a legitimate tier list. If you put in the effort to make a tier list, then fine, even if I disagree with you. But if you just have, you know, either throw something that isn't a tier list out as a tier list, or just, you know, wax about how tier lists are impossible. Why?
Okay. Well, before we close out the show, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Gut Check.
Gut Check.
Gut Check.
Okay. So this gut check is, what's the worst deck you've ever brewed?
Are we gonna limit this to cEDH, because I feel like it's better for context?
No.
Oh
No.
Huh. Yeah, there are some stinkers. Definitely some stinkers. Thankfully, I haven't brought that many terrible lists to like actual tournaments, I don't think. I don't have like the Patrick Sullivan story of like bringing the absolute worst position deck to a GP ever and just immediately going 0-3. But yeah, I definitely have some bad ones.
I mean, I did take a deck that wasn't Marvel to a GP where Marvel was legal.
I remember this.
And I made day 2. How about that?
Nice. Okay. So do you guys have your answers?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is... Yeah, I think I played this one for long enough that I can probably give it as an answer.
Okay. I'll go first. I've kind of got like 2-ish answers. So I've got one which is on Arena. I've got I was brewing with an historic Ominous Seas deck that was just ran like a million of like the discard and draw X cards and like Brawl and things like that, and like the God, what's the Aftermath Time Twister card? Morgan, help me out here.
Wait, oh, emergency powers?
No, Aftermath. The one that from the graveyard, the front.
Consigned to memory.
Oh, consigned to memory. Yeah, consigned to memory, and like it would just gas my opponents back up, and like you'd spend like 1 million cards to get like an 8/8 token that would just get like fatal pushed. It was very bad. But then I guess my other the other one that I thought was a good to mention is very early on in my Magic career, because my first ever experience with Magic...
Commit to memory, not consign to memory.
Oh, commit to memory, okay. My first ever experience with Magic was a conspiracy draft, where I drafted Defender synergy stuff. And then I was obsessed with Defenders for a while.
He really was. Oh my god.
And so my modern Defenders freed from the real combo deck was...
Oh boy.
Was hot, man. That was a hot mess.
Good times. I'm amazed you didn't try and revisit that when the new Leyline was spoiled. I felt like...
Well, eventually Defenders became not Defenders anymore. It became Arbor Elf and
Bloom Tender.
Bloom Tender, that's it. I was gonna say, I was like, Boreal, come on, see
But
Boreal.
then they printed a Leyline that makes all your dorks into double dorks, and you didn't even...
Yeah, but you need the blue for Freed from the Real.
Yeah, but there's still birds in Hierarch. Anyways.
Yeah, that's true.
Mine... Okay, this might not count because I literally couldn't finish it, which was I tried to brew Mangara of Karandor, not cEDH, just regular EDH, and I got to 80 cards, and it was like, there are no more cards I want to put in this deck. Like I have the white staples. I have the 10 like bad but like okay cards I put in to round it out. I have the like 20 synergy pieces, and then the lands and mana rocks, and this is an 85 card list, and I'm done. I don't know.
See, what you do then is that's when you put in like big mana cards and then the Eye of Ugin package. Easy.
Just because.
Eye of Ugin, best hidden commander, man.
But hot. if I have to have finished the deck, I think it, and like actually, played games with it, I think it would have to be my blue-white heroic deck that I built a rotation before blue-white heroic was a real deck, where instead of playing cons cards like that 1 mana cantrip that's also a combat trick and like good cards, I was playing, and also like treasure cruise, I was playing hidden strings and trait doctoring and cipher spells to trigger heroic. Good times.
Reed, is it some pauper brew?
I can give you okay, I can give you a pauper brew, so I'll give you 3 decks because I think they're like equally bad, but they're for different formats, different time periods. So, and actually, oh, that's so weird. They're all black red. That's so weird. Okay, so the one that I played for far longer than I ever should have in cEDH, and that like I cannot deny having built and played, is Neheb 8-Rack. With Neheb the Worthy, the 3 mana Neheb Minotaur and black red that whenever it hits somebody, everybody discards.
Dude, relating to 60 card terminology, how many racks can you run in cEDH?
I think I actually got up to 8 racks.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? That's impressive.
Yeah. So you can play Stormworld, Shrieking Affliction, Quest for the Nihil Stone.
Yikes.
Technically, Liliana's Caress is like sort of one. Blood Chief Ascension is sort of one. Yeah, it's bad.
Megrim?
Yeah,
Is that what
Megrim.
it's called?
Yeah. It's just a bunch of stuff that like was not at all playable, but I chose to play for far too long. I think I won like one game on the deck after trying to get like 20 games in with it. It was bad. It was playing a reanimation package, but because at the time Black Red didn't really have any real win cons, its reanimation package was Siren of Insanity, Omnixilus Unshackled, and Kervik the Merciless.
Wow. Wow.
It was unironically playing a Gorilla Shaman. Yeah. The more I look at this deck, the more it's painful. It was bad. Next up, for Pauper, I played a like Madness burn list for a while, which was really bad. That was playing like Faithless Looting, Bump in the Night, Alms of the Veil, Fiery Temper, Bolts. So like again, reminder, I'm playing like Alms of the Vein and Fiery Temper in a format where you're allowed to play 4 bolts. And I'm also playing 4 bolts. And then playing like Insolent Neonate, Spark Elemental, Unearth, Keldon Marauders. It was bad. It was terrible. I don't know why I kept playing that for as long as I did. It was real shitty. And then finally I played during Kaladesh Ixalan Standard, I think. I played it was I think I have the list here. It was like a Hollow One build your own squee list. With so it was like the Hollow One Flameblade Adept stuff with, you know, like Cathartic Reunions and things. But it was also playing Scrap Heap Scroungers and 4 Oval Chase Daredevil. Which was Oval Chase Daredevil is the 4 mana black creature, 4/2 human pilot that whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, you can return it from your graveyard to your hand. So the idea was that like you're doing this thing where like you're discarding all these Oval Chase Daredevils to cast Hollow One to get back all these Oval Chase Daredevils to discard to the next Cathartic Reunion, and then bringing back Scrap Heap Scroungers to get back all the Oval Chase Daredevils again, and like you just keep doing it. It was not a good deck, but it was hilarious.
You actually goldfished the dream like once, and then
I brought this to local like FNMs. It was not a good deck. It was also it was on 2 Key to the Cities as well for that recurring value.
Nice.
Hell
That's
yeah.
the stuff.
I actually just remembered I had a really crap Pauper brew that was built around Raphelos's Gift. Do you guys know what that does? It was like this weird enchantment storm deck.
Yeah.
Because Raphelos's Gift is like, it's a super hot card, and you're like, man, this card is clearly busted in some way. Like, you're like, it's reveal any number of green cards in your hand, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand for each card revealed this way. And there's like lots of like obviously cantripping enchantments that you can just sacrifice. And like I was like, oh my god, you know, and there's like God, what's the guy? Is it Guy's Touch?
Yeah.
The that one that sacks.
The expiration that you can.
It's technically a ritual. It's technically a ritual.
It's mana neutral. What?
No, because you can play a forest. But
oh, I see.
Yeah. And the weird thing about Guy's Touch 2 is it's not like exploration where you
it's not
you
a
have to
land
look
play.
up the
it's an ability.
It's an extra ability to put the basic land into play.
Weird if you look at the Oracle
it's
text.
terrible.
Very strange. But yeah, so I'm like, oh my god, dude, rituals and cantrips and like basically Yogg-Will. Hell yeah, this is gonna be awesome.
And then it was terrible.
It was terrible.
How many times did you lose to Blue Red Delver?
Dude, someone is gonna figure this deck out, and it's gonna be revolutionary. Okay, Caleb Gannon, get on it. Caleb Gannon, get on it. And then my current one that I refuse to put on the list that I didn't say earlier because I still have a place for my place for it in my heart because I'm still playing it right now in Arena is I've got a Font of Agony's control deck in Historic. So do you even know what Font of Agonies is?
Is that the one where you lose life, you put counters on them?
And then you can remove them to kill stuff?
Yeah. So it runs 4. It's an Abzan deck, and it runs 4 of each of the pain deserts.
Wraps it up for this episode.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I did.
But yeah,
I did really just want to say that, like, I want to thank everybody on this episode for basically just listening to like an hour and a half of Old Man Yells at Cloud.
Yeah.
Dude, we started off with a quote from an old man in Seinfeld, which is, I've got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're gonna hear about it. The perfect energy for the episode. But yeah. That about wraps up for this episode. If you guys would like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns, you can contact us on Twitter at IntoNorthPod, via our email intonorthpodcast@gmail.com, or on our Discord server, the invite link for which can be found in the description for this episode. An extra special thanks to all of our patrons who help cover the expenses for our show and allow us to work towards improving the quality of the podcast. If you too would like to become a patron, we are at patreon.com/IntoNorthPodcast. Another way you can support us is via our TCG Player affiliate link. So anytime you want to purchase something from TCG Player, if you use our affiliate link, which is in the podcast/YouTube description, a portion of your purchase goes towards supporting the podcast. So it's much appreciated. Thank you as always to the band Vox Cadre for our lovely podcast music, to Nate Slover for our equally lovely podcast logo, and to our video editor Manta Ray Hat, and to our long-suffering podcast editor Roadkill. Next episode will be out in 2 weeks. Until then, see ya.
See ya.
Have a good one.